Hi, I'm Laiken. So this last summer I went on a mission trip to Nairobi, Kenya. My church has been supporting the Furaha Community Foundation since 2008, I believe. We became connected with this organization through When I Grow Up, which is a nonprofit business that empowers children and families living in extreme poverty. They have partners in Guatemala, Haiti, and the one I went to in Kenya. So the Furaha Community Foundation, it has a lot of different parts to it. It began as a primary school and now has about 550 children, grades pre-kindergarten to grade 8, so like 3-year-olds to 13-year-olds. In 2014, they got a high school, which just had its first graduating class. There's about 200 kids there. They have several social workers who go around to the children's homes every day to make sure that they're doing everything they can to support the families. They have a support group for women with AIDS, since that is a really major problem there. They have a training program for single mothers who need to support their families, so they teach them how to sew so that they can go create their own business. They give out microloans, also to single mothers mostly, who are starting their own business. So they do a lot of wonderful things in the community. Whenever anything goes wrong, they're always there to help. A couple months ago, a building collapsed really close to the primary school. It was like a 6-story apartment building, and when it collapsed, it killed over 100 people, including one 4-year-old boy who went to the primary school, his 2 younger siblings, and his father. His mother's still alive, whatever. She broke both her legs, but she's getting better. She's supporting herself. But whenever tragic events like that happen, Furaha is the one there who are, opening up their classrooms for people to stay in until they could support themselves. Back in 2008, there was a lot of genocide going on, almost a civil war within the slum, and Furaha opened its doors and welcomed people as well. And the same thing with the fire in 2013. So they're really there to provide hope for the community, and it's just a really beautiful organization. Okay, so I was there for about a week with my dad and some members from our church, and it was a life-changing experience. I met a lot of amazing people. So I want to tell you 3 stories that particularly affected me. 3 people I met actually that just really impacted me. So the first is a little boy named Brandon who attends the primary school. I first met him when I was following one of the social workers around on her daily rounds. So we were checking in on the families, and I got to go into like 7 different houses, and we prayed for them, and I got to hear their stories, and it was really amazing. And one of the last houses we went to, we were getting closer and closer to the river, and there's a river that runs through the slum. When you get closer and closer to it, the worse the conditions get. So this was one of the worst houses we could have been in. And I walked in and I met the mother. She had a little baby, and she said she had 5 other kids who lived with her in a home that's probably like the size of my bathroom. And so she was telling us what she did for a living. She washes clothes. She said her kids were at school, but then there was a little boy next to her. So we, of course, asked, why isn't he in school? And she answered, well, because it rained last night. And then we learned that when it rains, there's a stream of sewage right outside their front door, and it pours in on the ground. And Brandon's uniform was on the ground. And she couldn't go explain to the school that he didn't have his uniform on because she had to she had the opportunity to work and wash clothes, and she couldn't pass that up. So Brandon couldn't go to school that day, and when I looked at his face, that just broke my heart, because I know all the kids there, they want to go to school, more than any kid I've ever met here. And the fact that he couldn't because of where he lived, that was one of the most impactful moments for me that far in the trip. And then the next student I met was actually at the high school. So we only had one day at the high school. It's about a 2-hour drive out of the city. It's pretty far in the countryside. And when we got there, the students had set up about 7 different science experiments they wanted to demonstrate to us and explain how they worked. And so I first met Alex when he was demonstrating a physics experiment to me, and I was immediately impressed with him. He explained things really well. I could tell he was really, really smart. He wanted to be a spinal surgeon when he grew up. That's pretty incredible. And then later on, we were all seated for an assembly, and some of the kids' dancing groups and choir and a poetry group, they were going to perform for us. So I sat in between two girls, and we were talking and getting to know each other. And I felt a tap on my shoulder, and I turned around, and it was Alex. And he said, "Hey, can I come up and sit next to you? I really want to ask you some questions." So of course I said, "Yeah, sure," because all the students were pretty interested in my life. That's Alex, I think. So I said, "Yeah, come up and sit next to me." He got up and he looked at me. He said, "Well, now I have to think of some questions to ask."
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So, throughout the assembly, he figured out some questions to ask me, and we talked a little bit. And later on, at the end of the assembly, Gilbert Foster, who is the director of When I Grow Up, he was there with us as well, and he got up in front of the kids. And he had been there the week before as well. And the week before, when he was at the high school, he gave them a quote. And he said, "Okay, whoever can figure out who said this quote, which U.S. president said this quote, I'll give you a prize." And so he got up in front of everyone and asked who had figured it out. And Alex had figured out that the quote was by Theodore Roosevelt. And so Gilbert said, "Okay, that's right. I think for your prize, I'm going to get you out of chores for the next couple of days." Because the students, they have to wake up at 4 a.m. every morning, do about 2 hours of chores before they start their classes, and they have a crazy schedule. So Gilbert asked Alex how he felt about that, and Alex was just shaking his head, and he was like, no, I don't want that. And ended up his principal wouldn't let him do it anyway. But what I found really fascinating about that was you could tell Alex didn't want 2 days off of his chores because he knew his principal wasn't going to go for it. He just didn't want other people to have to do more work for him. I just thought that really embodied the whole, all of the students there. They were all very selfless and all very, they all worked together really well to make sure that they were all successful. And then later on, I was actually talking to Gilbert, and he had talked to Alex, and he asked him how he figured out who the quote was by, because they can't just look up on Google and Roosevelt. So Alex said, "Oh, I found a book that talked about all the U.S. presidents." Gilbert said, "Oh, so the quote was in there under Roosevelt." And Alex said, "No, I read about all of them, and based on their personality, I could just tell it was Roosevelt." And I just thought that was amazing. I've never met another high school student who would do something like that. And so then at the end of the day, a group of guys came up and wanted to take a picture with us. So of course we said yeah. And then Alex pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, I want to give you something for you to remember me by." And I kept saying, "No, I don't need anything. I'm going to remember you." But he ended up giving me his blue pen just because he wanted me to remember him. So I have his blue pen with me. Yeah, so that's Alex. The last student I want to talk about was Mercy. I also first met her when she was demonstrating a science experiment for me. But I did know that I was going to be meeting Mercy for days before I got to the high school. Because When I Grow Up, they were featuring me and Mercy in a short documentary. So it's not out yet, but they're going to do a parallel of our lives, kind of juxtapose our lives. So yeah, I knew I was going to meet Mercy, so when I saw her, I was really excited to meet her. And she performed in almost all of the groups that performed at the assembly. She's an amazing dancer, and she's an even more amazing singer. She has a beautiful voice. And her goal in life is to start a music company so that other girls like her can use their voice to express how they feel in life. I think that's really cool. So as part of the documentary, Mercy and I got to sit down together along with Isabella and Mary. And the four of us just got to talk for like an hour. And the time just flew by. It felt like 10, 20 minutes because we were just laughing the whole time. And it was just, it wasn't hard at all to talk to them. They were so full of life, especially Mercy. She was just cracking jokes everywhere. And she was just so animated and fun to talk to. I just loved her. And then when I got back to our hotel, after saying goodbye to everyone, I found out a little bit about Mercy's backstory, and it shocked me based on, how I saw her acting. turns out just a couple months before we got there, I think, or maybe 6 months before, she had been in the hospital for about 3 months because she went home to visit her family, and while she was there, she went to a friend's house in an apartment building. When she was walking out of her friend's house, she got pulled into another room, and she was raped by members of a gang. And she had to get 3 months of hospital treatment and miss school because of that. And so seeing her sing and dance and smile and make jokes after that happened so recently, that was just incredible to me. And I also got to meet her mom while we were while I was with the social worker. I got to meet her mom, and we asked her, is there anything you want us to tell Mercy for you? And she said, tell her just keep smiling, because that's what we always tell each other. When things go bad, you just keep smiling. And I could definitely see that in Mercy and a lot of the students. That was just their motto, just keep smiling through the pain, and that was really incredible for me. So, yeah, it was a really impactful experience. I feel like every day when I reflect on it, I'm going to be learning more and more. And I don't know if I'll ever come to a conclusion of this is what I learned, because I think every day I pick up a little more when I reflect back on it. And I kept a journal and I read it sometimes, and I think it's just going to be an experience that's with me my whole life, and I can keep reflecting and learning from. And I really do hope to go back there someday and see everyone again. So if you have any questions, yeah.
Is the school partly a boarding school as well? Do some of the students live
Yeah,
there?
so at the high school, it's about 2 hours outside of the city, so all the students live on the campus. They have dormitories, and then they get to go home every once in a while, but none of the families have cars, so they can't really drive back and forth. The primary school is within the slum of Huruma, so they can all walk to school there.
You're amazing. I'm going to go out there on a limb and go, how the heck old are you?
I'm 17.
Your speaking and your mannerisms are amazing. You're
Thank
just
you.
and delightful.
Thank you. Yeah, actually, she said in my introduction that I do hope to major in communication at whatever university, and I really want to use that so that I can use my voice to say what they can't say, since there's
Tell a little bit about that. Are you sure?
I'm not sure when it's coming out. Probably soon.
End of the month.
End of the month. Yeah.
And who's producing
It's
that?
When
Is
I
it
Grow Up. So if you go on whenigrowup-global.com, you can find the video there.
Isabella is one of your travel mates?
Yeah, her uncle goes to my church, and he was with us, and he wanted to bring her. So yeah, we became good friends on the trip.
This is now our great communications.
Oh yeah.
Any other questions? We're also going to grab a book for you to sign that goes to the Reach Out and Read program. And so just kind of shows you ladies where our good Violet Richardson money does go. Because this was last year's winner, so definitely whoever was on that committee did an awesome job. She's awesome. Yes. So we appreciate you coming and sharing. Definitely. Yeah, Joanne's she's grabbing me a book here. I'll have you sign the back of that. Perfect.